I'm Uretsky Mitchell, and I've never known the comfort of a safety net. Growing up in Fresno, California in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, life was a patchwork of thrift store clothes and my mom's late-night shifts at the diner. Mom, Linda, was my rock, a woman with calloused hands and a heart that refused to let poverty dim her spirit. She'd come home at midnight smelling of coffee and grease and still find the energy to read me library books about far-off places like Paris or Machu Picchu. "The world's bigger than Fresno, Uretsky," she'd say, her eyes bright despite the exhaustion. Those moments curled up on our sagging couch planted a seed in me, a hunger to see that world and make her proud. Money was always tight. Mom skipped meals so I could have seconds, and she'd walk me to free community festivals, pointing out dancers from Mexico or drummers from Senegal, teaching me about cultures she'd only read about. I soaked it all in, especially the Spanish words she'd sprinkle in from her high school classes, hoping I'd dream bigger than our circumstances. But by the time I hit high school, I saw the toll it took on her. Bills piling up, her shoes wearing thin. I couldn't bear watching her sacrifice anymore. At 16, I made a choice. I'd graduate high school and start working. No college. No delays. Mom begged me to reconsider. "Uretsky, honey. Education's your ticket out," she'd say, her voice cracking. But I was stubborn. I wanted to lift her burden, to give her a life where she didn't have to count pennies for groceries. That decision wasn't easy. I lay awake at night wondering if I was throwing away my future. But I felt this fire inside, a need to prove I could make it, degree or not. I didn't know then that my knack for picking up Spanish from a friend would open doors or that the world Mom showed me through books would become my reality. All I knew was that I had to try for her and for me. Looking back, that choice was the step toward everything, toward love, heartbreak, and a strength I didn't know I had. In high school, I met Elena Rodriguez, a girl who changed my life. She'd moved to Fresno from Mexico, her family scraping by just like mine. We clicked instantly, two kids who knew what it was like to wear hand-me-downs and dodge questions about weekend plans we couldn't afford. Elena had this spark, always laughing, teaching me Spanish phrases while we shared cheap tacos at lunch. She'd tease, meaning, "I want to travel the world." I'd stumble over the words, but she'd cheer like I'd nailed it. Those moments made me feel like I could do anything. By senior year, I was fluent enough to hold real conversations in Spanish. Thanks to Elena. When I told her I wasn't going to college, she nodded. No judgment. She was skipping it too, chasing a job in event planning. We promised to stay in touch, but life pulled us apart after graduation. I landed a gig at a travel agency in Fresno, a small outfit that needed someone to talk to Spanish-speaking clients. My heart raced the time I booked a family's trip to Costa Rica, translating their dreams into itineraries. It felt like I was touching the world Mom had shown me in books. The agency was where I found my footing. I worked long hours learning the ins and outs of travel, flights, hotels, cultural nuances. My bosses noticed my hustle, and soon I was handling bigger accounts. But it wasn't just about the paycheck. Every booking felt like a step toward proving I didn't need a degree to succeed. Still, doubt gnawed at me. Would Mom be disappointed? Was I enough? Those questions lingered, but the thrill of building something kept me going. Little did I know that job was just the start, and it would lead me to a man who turned my world upside down. At 26, I walked into the Pacific Crest Resort in San Diego for a client meeting, my laptop bag heavy with proposals. The lounge was all polished wood and ocean views, a world away from Fresno's dusty streets. That's where I met Mark Carter, a concierge with a smile that could melt doubts. He brought me coffee, tossing in a playful café con leche, señorita, in perfect Spanish. I laughed surprised and fired back. That spark of connection, our shared language, felt like fate. Mark was 30, charming with eyes that held stories. We started chatting during my visits to the resort, about work, then about life. He told me about losing his dad as a teen, how he stayed close to his mom, Margaret, to keep her grounded. I shared about Mom's sacrifices, my drive to make her proud. Our talks grew longer, stealing moments between his shifts and my meetings. I felt alive, like I'd found someone who saw me. Not just the girl without a degree, but Uretsky, the dreamer. 6 months later, Mark proposed on a quiet beach at sunset, the waves whispering promises. I said yes, my heart soaring with visions of a life together. But when he asked me to move into his family's home in San Diego to look after Margaret, my stomach twisted. She's been alone since Dad passed, he said, his voice soft but firm. You work from home, so it'd be perfect. Right. I hesitated, remembering Mom's warnings about rushing in. But Mark's assurance that he'd handle any issues with his mom eased my fears. I wanted to believe in our future, in the love that felt so real, so I packed my bags unaware of the storm waiting for me. The time I met Margaret Carter, Mark's mother, I felt like I'd stepped into a courtroom. We sat in her pristine San Diego living room, all floral curtains and polished furniture, a stark contrast to my Fresno apartment. Margaret, 58, had the poise of a former socialite. Her silver hair swept into a tight bun. She asked about my job, my family, then zeroed in. You're at sea. Which college did you attend? Her tone was polite, but her eyes were sharp, sizing me up. I swallowed hard. I didn't go to college, Mrs. Carter. I graduated high school and started working. Her smile froze, and a long silence followed, heavy with judgment. High school. Wow. That's quaint, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I glanced at Mark, hoping for backup, but he just squeezed my hand, oblivious. That moment planted a seed of doubt, but I brushed it off. I loved Mark, and I'd make this work. Moving into their home was my big test. Margaret's house was a shrine to her past, a life of galas and wealth before her husband's death left her struggling. Mark said she needed support. And since my travel agency work was remote, I agreed to help with chores. But Margaret's welcome was cold. Don't touch the crystal, she'd snap, or keep the floors spotless. Her rules felt like a leash tightening with every passing day. I told myself it was temporary, that she'd warm up once she saw my effort. Mark promised to talk to her if things got tough, and I clung to that hope, ignoring the unease curling in my chest. I didn't yet see the shadow Margaret would cast over our life together. Living with Margaret was like walking on eggshells. Her demands started small: dust the shelves, vacuum daily, but soon snowballed into a full-time job. You're at sea. My room needs cleaning by 9 a.m. sharp. She'd bark, lounging on the couch with a soap opera blaring. I'd bite my tongue, rushing to finish client calls for my travel agency so I could scrub her floors. My laptop glowed late into the night as I caught up on work, exhaustion seeping into my bones. Margaret's criticism was relentless. The laundry's late again. She'd sigh, or this chicken's too spicy. I'd cook bland meals to please her, shop for her favorite brands, all while juggling deadlines. I'd imagined her frail, needing care after her husband's death. But she was vibrant, striding through the house, nitpicking every task. Mark was rarely home, his concierge shift stretching long. And when I hinted at Margaret's attitude, he'd laugh it off. Mum's just particular, you're at sea. She likes you, really. His words felt hollow, but I trusted him, hoping time would soften her. The strain was wearing me down. I'd stare at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering if I was failing as a wife. My business was growing. I'd started an online travel platform, booking luxury tours for clients worldwide, but Margaret scoffed at my computer hobby, assuming I was freeloading. Her disdain stung, reminding me of every doubt I'd ever had about not going to college. I confided in Mom during a call, her voice steady. You're enough, you're at sea. Don't let her dim your light. Her words kept me going, but the weight of Margaret's judgment was crushing. I didn't know how much longer I could hold on. 3 months into living with Margaret, she dropped a bomb over dinner. Mark and I are planning a trip to Italy, she announced, her eyes gleaming. Someone needs to stay and keep the house in order, you're at sea. Her words hit like a slap. I was expected to play maid while they jetted off. I glanced at Mark, waiting for him to correct her, but he just poked at his pasta, avoiding my gaze. That night, I pulled him aside. Mark, did you know about this trip? Am I really not invited? My voice trembled, hurt bubbling up. He sighed, rubbing his neck. It's a misunderstanding, you're at sea. Of course, you're coming. Mom just got it wrong. His reassurance felt flimsy. And when I said I wouldn't enjoy a trip with Margaret's attitude, he snapped, "Stop being so sensitive. It's a vacation for God's sake. Why can't you get along with her?" His anger stunned me. I'd poured my heart into this marriage, into his family, and he couldn't see my pain. I lay awake replaying his words, feeling like a stranger in my own home. The idea of traveling with Margaret, her snide remarks trailing me through Italy, was unbearable. My trust in Mark was cracking. How could he dismiss me so easily? I felt trapped, torn between love for him and the sinking realization that I was invisible in his world. Something had to give, and I sensed it was coming soon. The next morning, I decided to confront Margaret, hoping to clear the air. I didn't know it would be the moment everything unraveled. Breakfast the next day was a battlefield. Mark was home, a rare day off, and we sat at the dining table, the air thick with tension. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Margaret, you're trying to leave me out of the Italy trip, aren't you?" I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. She raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Urezzi, if you want to come, just say so. No need for drama." Her tone was mocking, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Mark cut in, his voice sharp. "Urezzi, apologize to Mom. You're making a scene." I stared at him, betrayed. Before I could respond, Margaret leaned forward, her eyes cold. "Honestly, Urezzi, maybe you should stay home. A trip like this, it's too sophisticated for someone with just a high school diploma. And lazing around on your laptop all day, do you even deserve it?" Her words sliced through me, each one a jab at my worth. "I work, Margaret," I shot back, trembling. "I've told you about my business. I'm not unemployed." She laughed, a cruel sound. "Work? Tapping away at home isn't a job. You're living off Mark's money, a leech who doesn't belong here. Just leave." My chest tightened, her words echoing every insecurity I'd fought to bury. I looked at Mark, pleading for him to see me, but he shrugged. "Maybe you need to cool off, Urezzi," he said, as if I was the problem. That was it. The love I'd clung to shattered. "Fine," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm gone." I stood, grabbed my keys, and walked out, Margaret's parting shot ringing in my ears. "Good luck scraping by, leech." I didn't look back, but I carried the weight of their betrayal, already planning my next move. 3 months after I left, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. It was Margaret, her voice frantic. "Urezzi, what's going on? We're drowning in collection notices." I leaned back in my Hawaiian villa, the ocean breeze cooling my skin. "You haven't paid the utilities, have you?" I said calmly. She sputtered. "I thought Mark was handling it. Why didn't you tell me you were paying for everything?" Her shock almost made me laugh. For years, my travel platform had exploded, earning me $20 million, quietly covering their bills while Margaret called me a leech. The truth spilled out. Margaret had burned through her late husband's savings, living like a queen until the money ran dry. She'd leaned on Mark, assuming his resort job paid well, but he was barely scraping by. Worse, they'd racked up $440,000 in credit card debt, designer clothes, fancy dinners, all on my dime, thinking I'd never leave. "You can fix this." "Right, Urezzi," Margaret pleaded. I pictured her smug face at that breakfast table, her insults still raw. "After everything, you're asking for help," I said, my voice ice cold. Mark grabbed the phone. "Urezzi, you're my wife. You have to help us." His desperation was pathetic. "I'm in Hawaii, Mark," I replied. "Got a vacation home here. Swing by if you can afford it." Their stunned silence was deafening. "Oh, and check the caller ID. It's international. This call's on you." I hung up, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and triumph. They'd underestimated me, but I was done being their doormat. For the time in years, I felt free, ready to reclaim my life. A week later, I flew back to California to finalize the divorce. Mark met me at a lawyer's office, looking haggard, dark circles under his eyes. "You were supposed to pay for the Italy trip, weren't you?" he muttered almost to himself. I wasn't surprised anymore. He'd counted on my money just like Margaret, never grasping how I'd built an empire while they sneered at my hobby. I handed him the divorce papers, my signature bold and final. "Good luck, Mark," I said, meaning it in a way that stung. He just nodded, defeated. Margaret and Mark were drowning in their $440,000 debt, their lavish habits catching up. I could have bailed them out. My business was thriving. But why should I? They treated me like dirt, assuming I'd always bend. Instead, I offered advice. Get jobs. Cut the spending. You'll figure it out. Mark's face twisted. You said you'd help. He snapped. I smiled cool and steady. I did. I'm helping you learn to stand on your own. When you can afford a plane ticket, I'll show you my place in Hawaii. His jaw dropped, but I was already walking away. Back in Fresno, I visited Mom, her pride shining when I told her everything. You're stronger than I ever dreamed, she said, hugging me tight. That moment washed away the pain of Mark's betrayal. I was done carrying their weight, done proving myself to people who'd never see me. My future was mine to shape, and I was ready to build it on my terms. Hawaii feels like a dream I never dared to have. My villa overlooks the Pacific, waves crashing against cliffs, a far cry from Fresno's dusty streets. Here, I rebuilt my life, my travel platform now a global name, connecting people to adventures I once only read about. But the real joy came when I flew Mom out to live with me. She walked through the house touching the walls like she couldn't believe it. "Yuretsi, you did this," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Seeing her relax, free from diner shifts, made every struggle worth it. Then came the surprise. Elena Rodriguez, my old friend, had a place just down the coast. We'd lost touch after high school, but she'd built her own empire in event planning, now a CEO with a smile as bright as ever. Over coffee, we laughed about our taco days, swapping stories of our rise. She'd brought her parents to Hawaii too, and we spent evenings together, our families blending like we'd never been apart. "We made it, Yuretsi," Eleanor said, clinking her glass against mine, "for them and for us." I heard Mark and Margaret are scraping by, working long hours to chip away at their debt. I wish them no harm, but their lesson is theirs to learn. As for me, I'm home, not just in Hawaii, but in myself. I've learned my worth doesn't come from a degree or someone else's approval. It's in the life I've built, the love I give, and the dreams I chase. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel.